My support for MyDeath-MyDecision is embedded in my experiences as a medical student 50 years ago. I was seconded to a GP up in North London, Dr. Bob Clark, who was our own family doctor. He was caring for 1 or 2 patients at home, and he inspired me. In fact, it was the care of those patients dying and his daily visits, with myself trailing behind him, that inspired me to become a general practitioner. And I realised that care of the dying at home and the bereavement counselling of their relatives, often their wife or husband, was really a pivotal role for a general practitioner. It seemed to be the most worthwhile aspect of our care. Then I was a junior hospital doctor after I qualified, and care of the dying on the wards was always left to the most junior doctors. The consultants and the seniors were never anywhere to be seen. It was a tough role, but we learned a great deal, mostly supported by the nurses, who tended to be very, very experienced senior nurses. Eventually I became a GP trainee, West London, under Dr. James Scobie. He was another inspiration and an icon. Much of our discussions centred around ethics, and particularly the important first principles: autonomy, beneficence, non-maleficence, justice. He drilled that into me, and I spent time at Imperial College on the ethics course, which brought that all home. Eventually, by the late 70s, I was a GP in my own right. One of my jobs involved care of a group of nuns at a hospital in North London, a Catholic hospital. The nuns, the Order of Mercy, were a nursing order. And when they first came under my care, there were nearly 40 nuns. And during the subsequent decade, these elderly ladies, one by one, died under my care. And I learnt a great deal about the management of symptoms and the care of those very noble people. Within that hospital, a hospice was then opened, now called St John's Hospice, and I was the first medical director. I went for training, St Joseph's Hospice, subsequently St Columba's in Edinburgh. And at that time, it became a reality that there are symptoms which at times are impossible to control. More importantly, when I was the governor of the hospice, I was able to admit people who weren't people necessarily with terminal illness. They might be people with intolerable symptoms that came to us for symptom control, often neurological conditions. Once more, we had to face the fact that at times there are difficult circumstances that are impossible to manage. And that debate has continued, the debate around what can we do for those patients to relieve their distress. Is it fair that it is controlled by law that a patient cannot make the decision to end their life if their predicament is completely intolerable? Times are now changing. Here in the UK, there might be an opportunity, or there is an opportunity, to change the law. We must see that before us, and we must push as hard as we can, those of us who are experienced in these affairs, to enable people to have some control, some choice over what happens to them when their symptoms become intolerable. And for that reason, I pledge the rest of my life to supporting this movement and doing all I can to make sure that instead of leaning heavily on the old dictum from the Hippocratic Oath, first do no harm, we must bear in mind that we might do harm by forcing people to accept an intolerable situation.